Something about the voicemail didn't sound right. It was short, barely a few seconds long, just heavy breathing, the faint sound of a television somewhere in the background, and then a sudden metallic thud that made the caller stop speaking completely. After that, there was silence. Not the normal kind of silence either. It felt hollow, empty, like whoever had been holding the phone had frozen in place before the line quietly disconnected on its own. The voicemail sat unheard for hours, and by the time Jennifer Sheffield's sister finally played it back, while standing outside the family's quiet home in Brandon, Mississippi, police were already on their way. The house looked normal, too normal. Christmas decorations still hung from the porch railings, untouched by the cold December wind. Brandon's pickup truck sat inside the garage beside Jennifer's SUV, exactly where they always parked them. The television inside the home flickered behind the curtains, casting pale blue light across the living room window. But no one answered the door. Not Jennifer, not Brandon, not their little boy asleep somewhere inside. And the longer the family stood, there listening to the muffled television through the walls, the more the silence began to feel alive. December 28, 2024, was supposed to be simple. The Sheffield family had spent the holidays surrounded by relatives, warm food, loud laughter, and the kind of ordinary happiness people never realize they'll someday replay in their heads forever. Jennifer had been texting family members photos just 2 nights earlier. Blurry pictures of wrapping paper covering the floor, Brandon half asleep on the couch, their son holding a toy dinosaur bigger than his head. Nothing looked unusual, nothing felt wrong. If anything, Jennifer sounded exhausted in the way every young parent sounds exhausted after Christmas. But then the messages stopped at first. Nobody thought much of it. Jennifer sometimes took hours to reply. Brandon was even worse. He hated phone calls and regularly left his phone charging somewhere while he worked in the garage or played with his son outside. But by the following morning, Jennifer's mother began noticing little things that bothered her. Calls went straight to voicemail. Texts remained unread. Brandon's younger brother drove past the house and noticed both vehicles still parked inside. Curtains closed, no movement, and maybe under different circumstances, none of it would have mattered. But families notice patterns. They notice when silence feels heavier than usual. And by afternoon, concern had turned into something sharper, something colder. When relatives finally arrived at the house together, nobody wanted to say what they were all secretly thinking. They kept making excuses out loud as they stood in the driveway. Maybe the phones died. Maybe the family had gone somewhere unexpectedly. Maybe Jennifer was angry at someone and ignoring calls. The explanations sounded weaker every time they repeated them. One family member knocked so hard the Christmas wreath rattled against the doorframe. Still nothing. Then Jennifer's sister noticed the television, the faint flicker coming from inside the dark living room, immediately unsettled her because Jennifer never left the TV running unattended. Ever she was obsessive about small things like wasted electricity and unlocked doors. The family circled the home, peering through windows, but the curtains blocked most of the interior. One relative swore they heard movement upstairs. Another insisted the house smelled strange near the garage entrance. Eventually someone called 911, their voice shaking while explaining that something just didn't feel right. Dispatchers promised deputies were on the way, but even before the sirens arrived, dread had already settled over the property like a storm cloud. The responding officers initially approached the welfare check like any other routine call. Houses go quiet all the time. Phones die. Families sleep through knocks. But the moment they stepped onto the porch, the atmosphere shifted. One deputy later described it as walking into a room after an argument ended. Nothing visible was wrong, yet everything felt wrong. The front door was locked. Officers walked around the property, while relatives waited near the driveway, trying not to imagine worst-case scenarios. One deputy peered through the back window and saw dishes still sitting on the kitchen counter beside half-open Christmas candy. Another noticed a child's shoe lying near the hallway entrance. Then came the detail that changed everything. Brandon's phone could be heard, vibrating faintly from somewhere inside the house. Call after call after call, but nobody moved to answer it. After several more attempts to make contact, officers made the decision to enter. The first thing they noticed was the heat. The house was unusually warm compared to the freezing air outside, carrying the stale heaviness of a home sealed shut for too long. Christmas lights blinked silently along the staircase railing, while the television continued playing to an empty room. One officer called out for Jennifer and Brandon repeatedly as they moved carefully through the downstairs area. No response came back. Just the television, just the hum of the heater, just silence layered on top of silence. Then one deputy stopped near the hallway. There were smears on the floor, not obvious at first glance, not dramatic, but enough to make him crouch down for a closer look. Dark reddish-brown streaks, partially wiped away as though someone had tried cleaning in a hurry. That was the moment the atmosphere inside the home changed completely. Officers immediately began clearing the rooms faster, voices sharper now, hearts pounding louder. Somewhere upstairs, one of them suddenly yelled for backup. And downstairs, Jennifer's mother collapsed before anyone even told her why. Jennifer Sheffield was found first. She lay inside the master bedroom beside the bed, partially covered by a blanket that looked deliberately placed there afterward. The injuries were catastrophic. Investigators would later say the violence inside that room didn't resemble panic or burglary. It resembled rage, personal rage, the kind that comes from someone standing inches away, not a stranger breaking into a home. Brandon was discovered nearby in the bathroom. The scene around him was even worse. Blood soaked through towels stuffed against wounds that suggested he had tried desperately to survive. But the most horrifying detail wasn't what officers found. It was who they didn't find. Their young son was gone. Suddenly, the entire investigation transformed. Amber Alert discussions began immediately. Officers searched closets, crawl spaces, neighboring yards, anywhere a frightened child could be hiding. Family members outside were crying openly now, as detectives tried piecing together impossible questions in real time. Had someone entered the house? Was the child kidnapped after witnessing the murders? Was he still alive somewhere nearby? The longer they searched without finding him, the darker the possibilities became. News spread through Brandon faster than investigators could control it. Neighbors gathered outside police tape whispering theories under their breath while patrol cars flooded the quiet street. Some residents reported hearing what sounded like arguing the previous night but dismissed it because the Sheffields were known as a normal, loving family. Others remembered seeing a dim garage light on unusually late. One neighbor even mentioned spotting an unfamiliar dark sedan parked briefly near the home days earlier. Detectives chased every lead they could find, but nothing concrete surfaced. Inside the house, however, evidence painted a deeply disturbing picture. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no shattered windows. Jennifer's purse remained untouched. Expensive electronics sat exactly where they belonged. This wasn't a robbery. Whoever committed the murders either knew the family personally or had been willingly allowed inside. Detectives recovered partial shoe impressions near the hallway and found traces of bleach used in multiple areas of the home, suggesting someone had attempted to clean the scene after the killings. But one detail continued haunting investigators more than anything else. Brandon's cell phone history showed several unanswered calls made during the early morning hours, calls that abruptly stopped all at once. Then, detectives uncovered the voicemail. Jennifer's sister remembered receiving a missed call from Jennifer's phone during the night, though no message notification had appeared immediately. When investigators finally extracted the audio file, everyone in the room purportedly went quiet listening to it. At first it sounded accidental, rustling fabric, uneven breathing, the distant sound of television dialogue, but near the end of the recording, a male voice could faintly be heard saying something almost impossible to make out clearly. Some investigators believed the voice said, "Just look at me." Others heard something worse, that the final sound, that metallic crash, matched an object later recovered inside the master bedroom, a shattered bedside lamp. Detectives theorized the voicemail may have been recorded during the attack itself, possibly triggered accidentally while Jennifer struggled with her phone. Suddenly, the timeline shifted dramatically. The murders likely happened much later than originally assumed, meaning someone remained inside that home for hours afterward, maybe cleaning, maybe searching for something, maybe waiting. And still, the child had not been found. 3 days into the investigation, detectives announced a breakthrough that shocked both families. The Sheffield's son was alive, A patrol officer in another county had located him safe inside the home of Brandon's longtime friend, a man named Caleb Mercer. Caleb immediately claimed Brandon had dropped the child off unexpectedly late at night because Jennifer and Brandon were having problems and needed space. According to Caleb, Brandon appeared stressed but not frightened. He insisted he had no idea anything violent had occurred afterward. At first, his story almost worked, until detectives checked surveillance footage from a nearby gas station. The footage showed Caleb alone, driving Brandon's truck. Hours after investigators believed Brandon was already dead. Everything unraveled after that. Detectives discovered Caleb had been financially dependent on Brandon for years. Failed businesses, gambling debt, quiet resentment hidden beneath a friendship that stretched back over a decade. Phone records revealed dozens of deleted messages between the two men in the weeks leading up to the murders. Witnesses later described increasing tension between them, though nobody understood why. Then forensic analysts found Caleb's DNA mixed with Brandon's blood near the garage utility sink, an area investigators believed had been partially cleaned. Under interrogation, Caleb changed his story repeatedly. First he claimed Brandon attacked him, then he claimed Jennifer was already dead when he arrived, then he stopped talking altogether. But investigators had already pieced together enough to understand the horrifying sequence of events. Caleb had gone to the house late that night after an escalating dispute involving money. Brandon allegedly demanded back. The argument became violent. Jennifer woke up during the confrontation upstairs. Panic exploded into brutality, and sometime afterward, with two bodies inside the home and a terrified child nearby, Caleb made a decision that detectives would later describe as unfathomably cold. He cleaned himself up, took the boy, and drove away before sunrise. The full truth emerged slowly over months of investigation, autopsy reports, and digital evidence. Brandon had fought harder than anyone initially realized. Despite catastrophic injuries, investigators determined he remained alive for a significant amount of time after the initial attack. Blood evidence showed he crawled through portions of the bathroom, attempting to stop the bleeding with towels while Jennifer had already died nearby. At one point, Brandon even managed to reach his cell phone. Those unanswered calls detectives discovered earlier, they weren't random. Brandon had been trying to contact people for help while Caleb moved through the house cleaning evidence downstairs. The calls stopped only when Brandon physically could no longer move. And Jennifer's voicemail, it had captured the exact moment she realized the person inside their home was someone they trusted. By the time relatives gathered outside the Sheffield house that cold December morning, the truth had already been sitting silently behind those walls for hours. Christmas lights still blinking, television still glowing, a child's toys still scattered across the floor beside the life that family thought understood. Neighbors later said they could never drive past the house at night without looking toward the living room window. Because sometimes, when a home goes quiet all at once, it's not silence you're hearing,